Fun. That's right. I'm sticking with it. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of. All right, cut.
That was good. That was genuine.
All right, let's stick with it. Welcome to another episode of Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing. I am your one-time and frequent host, Joe. I will introduce my fellow hosts in a moment here. But as we've been doing on the past several episodes, wanted to spend a second just talking about kind of what I've been into pop culturally speaking lately.
Gross.
I know, right? And honestly, there's not a ton to talk about. One thing I don't think I've mentioned last time is the recent Star Trek series, Strange New Worlds.
Oh.
The first season of that came to a close last week, I think it was. And that show is fantastic. Like, if anyone has ever liked Star Trek on any level, or even if you just like good science fiction, I can't recommend that series enough. It is just, the characters are great. The writing is great. It's funny. It, hits on some humanitarian themes that Trek, often explores. It's just a fantastic show. And I know I've seen some people say that it feels like a return to form for Trek. I would agree with that. I have seen some pushback against that, where some of my friends have said that they feel like, a lot of the other more recent series were still doing Star Trek well also. But to me, it feels like the first really great Star Trek series in probably 20 plus years. Really, I think that's the biggest thing that I haven't really mentioned before in the podcast. So I will hand it off to one of you, gents.
All right, I'll go next. This is Cody. And I've heard and read a couple reviews of the Star Trek show, but I haven't. What's it on Paramount?
It's on Paramount Plus.
Yeah, I don't have that. But the reviews I think I saw was like 10 out of 10 or 9 out of 10. Like, it was very high. So most people agree with you, which probably means it's not good. So anyway, what have I been up to recently? Oh man, I was on vacation for a lot of the time here recently in Michigan, but let's see, I've been spending my time. I just finished at some point here, maybe Brett and some of the other hosts, we might get together and do an episode on this bizarre book we've been looking at called Cain's Jawbone. I was just earlier today sitting at a car detailing place where they're cleaning my car all up from my vacation. And I read the last pages finally of that. So now comes the hard part, crunching it all together and figuring out the mystery. So we can talk about that sometime later. Maybe that'd be fun. Otherwise, let's see. Man, I guess I've been spending most of my free time recently on a new game that I started called Empire of Sin, which is kind of like an overhead. Actually, it's really interesting. It has a city like Grand Theft Auto. It's Chicago. The neighborhoods of Chicago split into smaller neighborhoods like the Loop and South Side and yada yada. But it's a gangster thing set in like the 20s. You start in the 1920s. I think 1920. You pick out one of the famous gangster people of the time and basically try to build an empire across the city, battling other empires and making deals with them and hiring people and buying supplies. And it's got the combat style of like an XCOM Fire Emblem type game, but then it has like basically the like land management / territory control of like civilization. So I've really been enjoying it so far.
Is that on Switch?
It's on Switch, but it's on all the platforms for sure. And I know I can tell from a couple times I tried to do it handheld and like the Switch really chugs along trying to play that bad boy. So I think it's probably more native to the other platforms, I would guess. But yeah, I'm enjoying it quite a bit. It's hard to get started, but now like I have a good chunk and stuff's happening. So it's interesting. Like new missions pop up all the time. It's really like a blend of those three games: Grand Theft Auto, Civilization, and like a XCOM or Fire Emblems type combat, but with guns, taking cover and hiding from stuff. So
that sounds fun.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it so far. So that's what I've been spending most of my recent time on.
Well, I actually remember, so just as you mentioned that, I remember that I'd seen someone play it, been streaming it a bit, and I remember like the fight music in that game is like really good. It's like really catchy. Is that true? Is that what I'm thinking of, or is
I'm trying to think?
There was like something
It could be. I generally play it either muted or very quietly because it easily takes the cake for the game I've played that swears the most often.
Fair,
Which is
yeah.
like, even
Headphones,
compared to
man.
other
Just put
ones.
headphones on.
No, I could, I know, but it's like I even checked in the settings because like it's needless swearing and like it's bugging me. It's so bad.
What?
It's like, listen, like every little random mobster you kill, if you kill like 15 in a gunfight, like 12 of them are like, oh, I'm fucked.
Why the fuck did you kill me?
Yeah, basically. And I'm like, every guy has to say that? Like, really? It's okay if they use it in dialogue, but why is that necessary? I don't know. Anyway, so it might be, but I got to turn the volume up louder.
Gotcha.
Man, can you like? I'm just picturing like I feel like 8-year-old me could never have conceived of there being swearing in a Nintendo game, or like a game on a Nintendo console. Like that's just crazy.
That's fair. Yeah.
Anyway, Brett, what are you up to?
Oh, hello, Ray. I'm Brett, and well, lately I started listening to the Game of Thrones series in my audiobooks again. It's probably been about, I don't even know, maybe I would say I started listening to them about the same time I started watching the show, and that was like 10 years ago. So it's been a while. But they're just as good as they were. I remember them, and they're pretty damn good. I actually just finished the first book today. So
the books are not done yet, right?
No, there's still 2 more to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a whole thing.
It like he was working on the last book, or the most current book, whether it's not going to be the last or not, we'll see. But he was working on it as they were like doing the last 2 seasons of the show. So that was like 6 years ago.
Yeah,
and he's still not done with this book.
I think it's been fully like 10 years now since the last book came out. Like
it could be. Yeah, I don't know the exact timeline, but I just remember like, the show was wrapping up and he was not done with the books yet. So they just went their own direction with things.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think that's part of why he hasn't finished it, though. I think he said that he kind of like, ran out of steam a little bit once the show passed him up, which is understandable. But I mean, he also, the frustrating thing is he keeps saying that he's working on it, but he also has like 5,000 other projects that he's doing all the time.
Yeah.
Like there's the Game of Thrones spinoff show that comes out next month.
There's 2
the
of
House
them.
of the Dragon.
Yeah.
And like he's heavily involved in that apparently, instead of like finishing the original books.
Mm.
I mean, I don't know. Do you blame the guy? I don't know if I'd blame. I did it first, but now I'm like, he probably can't type. His fingers are sore from counting money.
Yeah, like he definitely doesn't have to. Like he doesn't have to do it. He's got to be like close to a billionaire at this point.
He's going to George Lucas that shit in like 20 years. Just wait.
I mean, HBO is definitely going to just like milk it for all they can.
Oh, yeah. Coincidentally, the other thing I was going to mention is that I'm continuing to play Elden Ring. That's the main video game that I'm in right now, and I've been playing for like 3 months, and I'm still probably only like halfway through. This game is, it's massive, but that was the game that George R. Martin like heavily influenced. Like he basically like created the universe that the game is set in. And so he made his whole video game instead of writing his book. And I saw a quote recently where he's like, I don't understand why my fans are pissed off at me. It's like, well, let me count the ways.
That was a good George R. R. Martin impression.
But Game of Thrones, Elden Ring, and I don't know how much else we've been going swimming. We went swimming the last 3 days in a row. It's been hot up here, so we've been spending a lot of time at the beach.
What's water temperature? Do you know? It's really off topic, but
the other day we went out and it had rained like the day before, so it was like cold it was like balls cold.
Yeah,
and
this is a family show, you fucking assholes.
The last couple of days we went out, and it actually was pretty pleasant. You have to get used to it a little bit, but it is pretty good. Yeah.
When we were up on vacation, it was like 45, 46. And we were like, there's no way we can get in that. And then like we swam in it for like multiple hours, like both days. It was like, you just get used to it instantly. It's weird.
It's true.
I mean, 2 people died, but other than that, it was good.
Oh, well, that's not bad.
It's just casualties.
Anyway,
just attrition. All right.
So on that lovely note, we're gathered here today on the Fond Podcast to talk about Aliens. That's right, the 1986 James Cameron classic film, sequel to Ridley Scott's horror
Horror.
original.
Horror.
Now we kind of in line with our previous podcasts about ghosts and Sasquatch and those sorts of things. We're gonna discuss and ponder the possible existence of aliens and or UFOs, both in the universe in general and as they may have presented themselves to people here on Earth. So let's just kick it off by going around really quick and maybe talking briefly about our own personal, I don't want to say experiences necessarily, but history or like what your interest level in the topic of aliens and UFOs is, and maybe where that comes from.
Yes.
Cody, you're nodding, so you get to go first.
Oh, yes. Well, I was just thinking, I wish I could do a good impression of who's a Kate McKinnon that does the Saturday Night Live person who's abducted that always talks about how they were like doing stuff to her cooter and stuff. But anyway, I can't do an impression of that, so I'm not going to. So, interest in aliens. I mean, I guess it's just natural for most people. I mean, I'm sure there's some non-believers out there completely, but it's just like we don't know what's in the ocean, just like we talked about in the Bigfoot episode, like what else could be out there? If you look at space, like it's infinite.
No one can hear you scream.
Possibilities. Well, yeah, but stuff blows up and burns all the time out there. If Hollywood's taught us anything, so we got that going for us. But it's just, I don't know. I feel like it's presented in pop culture nonstop, and not only that, but also in science and updates. And I mean, we just had recently, not the Hubble, what's the new telescope?
James Webb.
The Webb, yeah, the Webb with those awesome images from outer space. And I mean, I don't know how you can seriously look at those and like not just wonder what else could be out there. Like
the
not even necessarily
is out there.
Alien civilizations or whatnot, but I mean, who knows what types of things are out there. And I guess to me, and we can get into this a little more later, but to me, like I think there's a fundamental question you got to ask before you have any of these discussion topics, and we can talk about that in a little bit here. But
I'm curious.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I could say it. I mean, it's just kind of natural that I've been, a fan of sci-fi kind of stuff for most of my life. And so, a topic about anything, space and aliens, possibility aliens, any of that kind of sci-fi stuff it's pretty cool to think about. And, also as an engineer, I'm kind of very science-based in my thinking about many things. And, it's pretty hard, kind of as Cody was alluding to look at how vast our universe is and to just say, oh yeah, it's just us. That's there can't be anything else out there. Well, it's so huge that you really statistically have to assume that there's got to be something out there. So what that what kind of form that takes, that who knows? But yeah, as I said, it's this cool thing to think about.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just going to echo what you guys said. I mean, I think something that just occurred. Well, I mean, first of all, backing up, as you guys said, it's kind of everywhere. Like we're all nerds to varying degrees. So, we're all into like science fiction. I'm sure we all grew up with it. And, I've been into Star Trek my entire life. So it's always kind of like looking towards the stars. Something that just occurred to me, which I don't know how true this is, but especially Brett's background on Zoom right now is Mulder's office from the X-Files with a poster on the wall that says, "I want to believe." And I think there is actually a lot to that. And maybe it ties into our sort of innate longing for there to be something like larger than us. Like it's if there are aliens out there, it's almost like proof of magic or something. Like it's proof of something that exists beyond our like current comprehension and realm of experience and like worldview. So I don't know, maybe there's something to that, maybe there's not, but I think for me, that is at least part of it is, like it's wanting something to exist that is outside of what we know.
The majority of us are probably explorers at heart
Yeah.
to some degree.
Yeah, I think that's part of it too. I mean,
And there's not much left on our planet here to explore.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe this is a conversation to get into later, but I was actually talking to one of my other friends about this about the web photos.
Yeah.
And the fact that like sometimes I get depressed because looking at something like that, like in the entire history of humanity going forward, which might not be very long the way things are going, but like realistically, we are never going to know like anything about the universe. Like we are just so microscopic, and like it's kind of depressing but amazing at the same time to just think about like how little we know about like the universe that we live in.
Some alien civilization could have a group of people or whatever they call themselves creating a not listened to enough podcast right now in their own houses
It's
for
true.
their own listeners.
Yeah.
It's like
Are humans out there?
Yeah.
We
saw a human.
But I mean, I kind of getting into the topic, I briefly mentioned this before we started recording, but something that's interesting about the idea of aliens / UFOs is this is something that has been kind of discussed throughout known history. Like there are writings, recordings of people thousands of years ago saying that they have seen like flaming discs in the sky. And there are all these, various references in different ancient texts to UFOs, like unidentified things in the sky, or, things that could be interpreted as like alien visitations and things like that. So it's something that seems like it has fascinated humanity for as long as humanity has been capable of, like critical thinking and recording their thoughts. So it is kind of just like innate to the human experience, it seems like.
Well, that's kind of interesting too, because I feel like I have two big questions, I guess, to consider with this topic, but you're kind of hinting at what my second one's going to be, in that it's weird because we think of a lot of the stories from ancient civilizations or olden times as like probably being more inaccurate, or like, they were like, it's raining today, so this god made it rain, or whatever the case may be.
We just assume that they don't understand the world around them, so they make things up.
Yeah. Like we read it as myth instead of like fact.
Right. But I think the like, cave drawings of like UFOs and stuff almost is, the opposite of that, because today we could kind of explain away lights we see in the sky somehow with some technology or something. But back then, obviously wouldn't have been the case. So it's interesting to think like if 1,000 years ago, people were seeing crap in the sky and recording it down, then what the hell was that, right? Because that wasn't an observation balloon or whatever.
There weren't like aircraft or anything.
Right.
That is an interesting point. I'm curious about what your fundamental question.
Oh, well, we can get into the one, because I feel like I can't go down the track of the one until we cover it. So, but the first question to me, is, well, the second one I kind of alluded to already, which is if you're in modern times, the stuff people see, could it be something from not on this world, extraterrestrial, in other words, possibly, but we have a lot of things that are like scientific and technological and secretive and things like that today. So that's where a lot of the weird ass conspiracies, I think, come in today's world. But when you look at like those pictures of the universe and the galaxy and stuff, the first question to me then is going to be like, you're going to have the certain population out there who is the theological side, who's going to say, this is it because this is what God made, right? Not to jump too far down this track, but this is the idea that we put humans on Earth and this is the paradise or whatever, then there is nothing else out there and we could search for eternity and there's just nothing out there. And that's validated at the moment by the fact that we have no concrete proof of anything else being out there. But if you're not of somebody that believes that, then the other option is what else is out there that we just haven't found yet. So I'm going to discount part one for this most of the majority of the episode here, so we can focus on the other idea here. But I think you got to mention that because some people are just going to say there's nothing out there because it's not what I believe.
I mean, I think, Brett mentioned being an engineer, he's science minded. I think we are all science minded individuals. And I think, looking at everything that we do know, I mean, as Brett said, it's kind of impossible not to think that there has to be intelligent. And I mean, we should say, I think we're talking specifically about intelligent life existing somewhere else in the universe, not just like a, microbe or something. But I mean, I think I actually mentioned, I don't even remember what episode it was on, but some other episode I was rambling about something and talked about dark matter. And something like 90% of the universe, from what we know, is comprised of dark matter. And we don't know what that is. Like, we literally we can't explain this apparent thing that comprises the vast, vast majority of the universe that we live in. Like, given that, given the fact that we can't explain like anything about the universe, I don't know how you could possibly just blanketly say that there is no other intelligent life out there.
I mean, I'm just saying some people do. I'm not saying I do, but I'm just saying.
I mean, well, I don't want to get too far into the whole religion thing, but
let's do it. All right. Book 1, Genesis. Here we go.
All right. So God is bullshit. What?
Okay,
whoa,
buddy.
I'm
okay.
just
all right. All right.
No, I don't. Well, and I mean, the idea of what could be out there, I think, is interesting too, because I feel like we might not have any idea about that. Like most of our science fiction, the alien species they portray are, humanoid.
Yeah.
Even in like most of the purported sightings that people have had, like in quote unquote real life, you have the stereotypical like little gray men with the sort of like elongated heads, but they're still pretty, they're still usually like bipedal humanoid in appearance. Like realistically, I feel like it's kind of conceited to assume that if there is life out there somewhere, that it would look anything remotely like us.
Yeah, the idea that something would evolve from whatever, some little glop of goop, and basically have the same features as us is preposterous, really. the chances of that happening are so small. At that point, you'd have to be considering like you'd have to bring creationism into it, really, because that's the only way that these two things could possibly go down the same path.
Yeah.
I mean, getting back to Star Trek for a second, like, because I mean, religion is bullshit, but Star Trek isn't. I'm just kidding. It's fine. Anyway, one thing that's always stuck with me is there's an episode of the original series from the 60s where I forget the exact setup of the series, but basically they're not detecting life forms on this one planet, and they later discover that it's because all life as we know it, like on Earth, our entire, concept of life is centered around the idea of carbon-based life forms. And they discover that the creatures inhabiting this one planet are silicon-based life forms. So their like entire genetic structure is like completely alien, for lack of a better word, completely outside of our experience of what constitutes life. So, I mean, again, this has always kind of blown my mind because it's from the 1960s, but like, for all we know, that could be the case too. Like, maybe whatever life is out there just does not in any way, shape, or form line up with like anything that we would even necessarily look for when we're looking for signs of life.
Yeah, I think these are some of the more interesting questions when discussing this topic is, what kind of forms could these alien lives take? Because they almost certainly aren't going to be, they might have some similarities to us, but they, they probably aren't going to be the same. So, exactly like you're saying, like it could be completely different genetic structures made of different base materials. It could be like, like how we're mostly water. They could be mostly stone or something. I don't know. And it could be just about anything. It's just reminded me of the alternate universe of stone people that Cody enjoys so much. But yeah, it really, I mean, these are the questions that are interesting is how would they evolve? What would they do? What kind of civilization of sorts would they have? And then like, how are, socially structures? Yeah. All these kind of things. Those are really kind of open-ended, interesting things to talk about, because it could be anything. Whatever you want to dream up is a possibility, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I almost feel like we could probably go on about like that conversation forever. It's, it's kind of a philosophical conversation.
Yeah, it's just completely open-ended.
Kind of just fall down that. I mean, I love talking about that, but I mean,
we're not the best for this.
Yeah,
for this
podcast. Let's kind of rein it in a little bit and maybe look at the idea that aliens may have visited Earth. I mentioned throughout history, there are all these kinds of writings about it. Obviously, there have been some fairly well-known cases where people claim that they have either seen UFOs or aliens themselves. Roswell is probably the biggest and best known one.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like that, at least in the 20th century, led to, kind of alien craze. Like in the wake of Roswell, we start to see more, science fiction focusing on the idea of aliens visiting or invading Earth and things like that. We're talking before recording too, we referenced the X-Files a couple of times already on this episode, but it seemed like in the 90s, there was this sort of resurgence of, the sort of alien craze with the X-Files, and you had like National Enquirer and all the different tabloids talking about people getting abducted by aliens. You had Alien Autopsy, which was, I think, on Fox. It was this like television special which supposedly was showing you like an actual autopsy of an alien that was found. It was very not real looking if you look back at it now.
You don't know what the aliens could have looked like. Don't say that.
But it does feel like there was this kind of brief period around then where it was like the sort of like hot, topic, pop cultural thing. I guess I don't even really know. Do either of you guys have any idea where that, like, why that became a thing then? Do you think it was the X-Files? Like, I don't remember a timeline. I don't know if this all started in the aftermath of the X-Files or like.
I remember because you had movies that were hot, like Mars Attacks, Independence Day. You had like movies of that same time period too, but I don't know what started it.
It's just weird. I mean, I'm sure that I feel like the tabloids did a lot to like drive it if they were responsible for kind of starting it, but you'd see that all over the place. But it's kind of interesting.
It was clearly the Nintendo game Contra that started the whole thing.
I mean, that's yes.
Those
aliens in the last level still kind of creep me out. The little face hugger guys.
I don't know that I ever made it to the last level. Honest.
I've only ever done it by using the Konami code.
Come on now, Konami code. Also, this website I'm on at the bottom, this is off topic, but apparently has an article called Hitler's Teeth Reveal Nazi Dictator's Cause of Death. I was not aware they finally found his body, so there you go.
Oh, that is interesting. I didn't know that either. I did want to I wanted to talk about one of our friends who was unfortunately not able to make it on the podcast had mentioned this case that he said he had read about recently. The Kelly Hopkinsville encounter, which I kind of looked into a little bit, and it's a pretty interesting case of a supposed alien encounter that happened in 1955 in Kentucky.
Okay.
And this consisted of, on the evening of August 21st, 1955, a group of 5 adults and 7 children arrived at the police station in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, claiming that they had basically a shootout with a group of small alien creatures. They claim that the creatures had attacked their farmhouse and that they had been holding them off with gunfire basically for hours overnight. And they claim that there are 12 to 15 short, dark figures who kept popping up in doorways and peering into windows.
Oh.
And they just kept shooting at them to try to hold them off.
Were they drunk and stumbled into a carnival?
Funny you should mention that.
No. I absolutely just threw that out there.
Police actually investigated this along with some personnel from a nearby military base. And they could not find any evidence aside from there was obviously evidence of the gunfire from the people. There were, bullet holes all over the place and stuff. So weirdly, this is apparently one of the most researched and documented alien encounters in the US history, which is wild to me.
Okay.
But in subsequent investigations, this is where it gets really crazy to me.
Oh boy.
It seems like the most widely believed explanation for what happened, which I mean, taking a step back, you've got 13 people who are all claiming that they saw these things. So it's not, if you have one person saying they saw something, they could just be, mentally imbalanced, or they could be misinterpreting what they saw. But generally, if you have a group of people this large, unless it's some sort of mass hysteria, which I mean is a thing that can happen, you usually would assume that there might be something to it that caused them to believe what they believe. So the apparent leading explanation for what they saw is great horned owls. I'm just going to leave it at that. Great horned owls.
Yep.
Apparently
that's it.
They are these owls are known to inhabit the area where this happened, and they are also known to aggressively defend their nests and their nesting area. So it's basically believed that, I don't know what these people did to piss these owls off, but basically a bunch of owls just started attacking their house.
That sounds plausible.
That's the best explanation that anyone has for this, which is amazing to me. But Brett, the reason I said that it's funny that you asked if they got drunk and stumbled into a carnival is that this article does mention that two of the people that were living in this house were itinerant unemployed carnival workers. And it does also mention that they believe that at least some of the people may have been intoxicated at the time.
That's funny.
Were they living in the fun house?
Or it was a drunken shootout with some owls.
No, right, sure.
I mean,
were the owls shooting back? That's my question.
You never know. I mean, if you're a Twin Peaks fan like myself, you know that the owls are not what they seem. So.
Ooh. Or Wayward Pines either.
But yeah, it's crazy to me that this is one of the best known instances.
Yeah, that's kind of bizarre.
I mean, do you guys I kind of mentioned before we recorded also that I feel like there's kind of a distinction to be made between purported alien encounters and UFO sightings. How do you guys feel about the idea of aliens actually having revealed themselves to people on Earth, and I mean, whether you believe in actual abductions or not, at least sightings of aliens?
That's tough to answer. I feel like the idea that aliens are out there is plausible. That they've come to Earth is slightly less plausible. I don't know if I buy many of the actual face-to-face interactions or people that claim they've been touched by an alien,
you can
appropriately
say probe,
or inappropriately.
Cody.
Yeah,
Cody's been waiting all episode to talk about anal probes.
The anal probes, I think they were called. I didn't know it was a French word.
Anal probe.
No.
Pardon me, but have you any anal probe?
I don't know. Brett, what do you think on this one?
I guess similar general thoughts. A lot of the a lot of the stories about meeting some sort of extraterrestrial face to face or being abducted, these kind of things. They're really interesting. I love to hear them because they often are very kind of spooky and kind of hair raising, and that's kind of fun to dive into a bit. But the question would always come back to is to like, why would they? what purpose would that serve them at all? They always like, it always comes back to, oh, well, they're studying us. And
they're just really into butt play.
I think if they're so advanced as to be able to travel millions of light years to come visit us, what the hell would they need to study us physically for? In these methods. So I have a hard time believing stories of people who have these face-to-face interactions, so to speak. But the other hand, I think a lot of the UFO sightings and things like that, I definitely give those more plausibility. They, as we advance ourselves and, as more things come out that we're aware exist, there's always the question of, our military and whereas these private people are developing technology that is far beyond, what we actually has been released to the public. That's certainly possible. So in recent times, let's say 20, 30 years, whatever, 40 years, I'm certain that some of these sightings, some portion of them are just something that we've created, other humans have made, but as you say, things have been recorded for thousands of years, and there's like paintings on walls and things in ancient texts, and exactly like I said before, like that clearly was not us. So it could have been, who knows what they might have just seen something in the air. It could have been a bird far off or something potentially.
People would probably people would say like they probably could have been like comets or even like shooting stars, like just.
But how often do you see those?
Like well, I'll
all the time back then, apparently.
I have a story.
Oh,
I seen it.
Let's hear it.
What you got?
I have a UFO story.
Let's do it.
Picture it, Marquette, Michigan.
Easy to picture. It was just
circa 2010, probably it was. I forget the exact year.
Okay.
Sure you gentlemen are familiar with Wetmore Landing.
Okay.
I think you were just there, weren't you, Cody?
I was. I just swam there. Yeah.
So there's this beach.
And the aliens.
Well, first, let me back up. Marquette, Michigan is a city in Michigan's beautiful Upper Peninsula, which is situated right on the shore of Lake Superior, the greatest of Great Lakes. Sorry, Michigan. And all three of us have a history up there. I went to school up there from 2001 until 2011.
Jesus, this is an autobiography, or you got a story coming with UFOs here?
I'm just trying to set the scene, dear God. Anyway.
Chapter 1.
Anyway, so up in Marquette, there's this place called Wetmore Landing, which there's a beach there. There's also some trails you can hike. And if you're facing the water from the beach and you go off to the right, there's these, what?
That's exactly where I was swimming. Keep going.
My God, are you an alien?
No, my human friends. I mean friends.
Anyway, if you go down the beach a ways, there are these like very large, I don't know if you call them boulders, these like very large rocks.
Yeah.
And back in the day when I was living up there, on occasion, I would go out there and go out there at night and climb up on said rocks and do some stargazing.
Okay.
So one night, my dad and brother were up in town visiting me, and we all went out there. It was me, my dad, my brother, and my best friend at the time. We went out to Whitmore Landing, brought a backpack with some Pabst Blue Ribbon beers in it and some peanuts.
Classic.
Gonna settle in for a couple hours, looking up at the night sky and just hanging out. I mean, there's like no light pollution there if you're on that beach looking out over the lake, so you get a great view of the moon and the stars, and there are often like shooting stars you can see and things like that. So we're hanging out there for a while, and we did not partake of too many Pabst Blue Ribbon beers. Just that is not a factor. But I don't remember which one of us noticed it first, but at a certain point, someone just pointed out, "Hey, do you see that thing that's moving kind of weirdly in the sky?" And it was this point of light that was like brighter than all the stars, and it was moving in a way that I can't explain it. That is to say, it was basically moving in like right angles and faster than an airplane, like faster than anything I've ever seen move in the sky. It was this light that was basically just like zipping in like straight lines from point to point, and didn't seem to be like moving continuously in one direction. It was like moving like boop, 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 like just kind of, like I said, just like zipping around, but like in these straight lines, kind of at right angles. And I mean, from our perspective, at least, it appeared to be high enough up in the sky that it would, it had to be, it looked like it was like as high up as the stars, but I mean, it's hard to say. It certainly had to at least be like an aircraft of sort, it wasn't something that was like a drone. I mean, I don't even think drones existed back then, at least not like to the point where everyone has them, but it was like that high up there. And all four of us just kind of like acknowledged, like, you're seeing that. Yeah, just like we all were seeing the same thing. And like none of us, like to this day, I'll talk to my brother and my dad and be like, "Hey, remember when we saw that UFO?" They're like, "Oh yeah." Like, it's just this thing. And none of us could explain it. None of us can explain it now. I've never seen anything like it. From my understanding of, science and like things that I've experienced, I have no idea what it could have possibly been. It was just like, it was moving in just an impossible manner. The kind of spooky PS, which I know.
Okay.
I mean, don't put any like, take this with a grain of salt, because this is just like whatever. But my brother has had some issues in his life, but I feel like there are some people who are like maybe more in tune with the universe than other people. I think maybe we talked about this on the ghost episode, that there are people who can kind of like sense things more than like other people.
Definitely determined it's not Justin.
And I kind of feel like my brother is one of those people. And after we were out there watching this thing for a while, it finally like zipped off. And my brother's just like, "We have to go right now." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "I just have a really bad feeling. We need to go." And like, he like just got up and like went. So I don't think there was anything to that, but it was just really freaking weird. But anyway, yeah, like no idea what that was that we saw. I'm not saying it was aliens, but it was aliens.
There we go. Finally.
No, I don't even really believe that. I mean, like you guys were saying, I would 100% believe that it was some sort of like military experimental aircraft or something, especially, I mean, I have heard rumors and I've also seen some weird evidence to suggest that there are some like secret military bases up in the UP. Um, so yeah, I don't know. For all I know, it could have been that. I don't know. It could have been aliens, whatever. I don't know what it was, but I can say that I have seen a UFO. I'm not saying that it was of alien origin, but I don't know what it was.
Those are the ones that I find most interesting. Is you always see like, you know, this person like captures this video on, you know, back a lot of them you see are probably like VHS camcorder, you know, kind of thing. But and they're like a, you know, moving all over the place. They're like a hit and hold this thing steady, but you know, with these lights in the sky that just kind of move in these crazy, what we understand to be not physics can't explain how they're moving in that fashion. I found those really, really interesting. And you know, yeah, it should put some plausibility to it. You know, those videos that are where the cameras kind of like bouncing all over the place are, in a little bit way, are almost more believable, because if a camera's just kind of still, I mean, even me with my limited like video editing skills could probably put a light in a sky on a camera that's not moving and just make it zip around.
Yeah, that's
but
fair.
but to have a light moving around on a screen that is jumbling and moving all over the place, that would be pretty tough to fake. At least I feel that way. I like I say, I'm not a video editor, you know, by profession, but yeah, stories like that, I find those are really pretty interesting to hear.
Yep. Throw a few more stories out here at us. This is on history.com. I found I was wondering why these were all dated the way they are, and then I reread the title of this. It is the 5 most credible modern UFO sightings.
Ooh, hit us with them.
This is called. So number 1 is in 2001, the lights above the New Jersey Turnpike. Essentially says for 15 minutes after midnight, people marveled at the strange orange and yellow lights that were in a V formation. Police departments and other people were witnesses. And it says air traffic controllers denied any airplanes, military jets, or space flights could have caused the mysterious lights. And one group known as the New York Strange Phenomena Investigators claimed they received radar data that corroborated the UFO sightings from that night. So I guess these are kind of ones that have a lot of witnesses in modern times. Number 2 here is called the USS Nimitz encounter. 2004, there was a group of ships essentially who noted that there was an unknown craft on their radar 100 miles off the coast of San Diego. They tracked the objects for over 2 weeks. That would go from 80,000 feet altitude and then plummet instantly to right over the Pacific Ocean, hovering. And then it says 2 fighter jets from the aircraft carrier USS Nimitz arrived in the area to investigate. They saw what they described to be churning water with the shadow of an oval shape under the surface. Then in a few moments, a white tic-tac shaped object appeared above the water. It had no visible markings to indicate an engine, wings, or windows. Infrared monitors didn't reveal any exhaust as well. They attempted to intercept the craft. It accelerated away. It moved estimated 3 times the speed of sound and more than twice the speed of the fighter jets.
Yeah, that's one I've heard more than once. That's a pretty cool story.
Yeah, it's
just a
really
shaboom.
interesting.
Number 3 is right here, O'Hare International Airport saucer, 2006.
What?
Flight 446 was getting ready to fly from North Carolina from Chicago O'Hare. A United Airlines employee on the tarmac noticed a dark gray metallic craft hovering over gate C-17. That's very specific. 12 total United employees and also witnesses outside the airport also spotted the saucer-shaped craft at 4:15 p.m. Witnesses say it hovered for 5 minutes before it shot upwards, where it broke a hole in the clouds, enough so that the pilots and mechanics could see blue sky shine through.
Yeah.
The news report became the most read story on the Chicago Tribune's website to that date, also made international news. However, because the UFO was not seen on any radar, the FAA officially categorized it as a weather phenomenon and declined to investigate.
Of course, it's always weather. It's always the weather.
It's a weather balloon.
No doubt. No doubt. Number
Ball
4,
lightning.
the Stevensville sightings 2008, Stevensville, Texas, 100 miles southwest of Dallas. It sounds like actually the movie Nope that's coming out. More known for its dairy farms. However, they had dozens of witnesses view something in the sky. They saw white lights above Highway 67. First, the lights appeared in a single horizontal arc and then in vertical parallel lines. They estimated the strobe light spanned about a mile long and a half mile wide and traveled at about 3,000 miles per hour. No sound was reported at the time. Witnesses believed it was very similar to the Phoenix light sightings of 1997, where the military officially said that it was F-16s, but people did not believe that explanation, saying what they saw was too advanced technologically for current human abilities. And then the last one here is the East Coast Go Fast video of 2015, which says it looks like an encounter between a FA-18 Super Hornet and some unidentified aerial phenomenon. Fast-moving white oval, 45 feet long, did not have wings or an exhaust plume. They tracked the object at 25,000 feet above the Atlantic Ocean as it flew away and also simultaneously rotated on its axis. Why? I don't know how you have an axis for that, but anyway, no explanation ever came out of that as well. So apparently these are some of the more modern ones recently.
See, at least 4 out of the 5 of those to me sound like they could probably be explained as like military aircraft that
New
they're
tech.
just like don't want to admit exists. I don't know.
It's kind of interesting though, like if since like the 70s or something we've had these super secret planes, like is that technology ever going to be good enough that we're going to like reveal that shit to the public and actually use it for anything? Because just keeping it in the shadows so that it pops up in these videos is not really that good.
I mean, we don't want the enemy to know what we have.
I guess we also don't know that they haven't been using them for
Yeah,
whatever their
that's-
purpose is,
That's
right?
true.
All right.
I saw that one drop COVID over Utah, but
Goddamn contrails.
Uh,
That's an interesting point, though. Actually, though, that decades of these top secret conspiracies, and I guess you would assume that at some point, let's just go back and assume that like in the 70s they had, and of course they did, like the oh wow, my brain is broken again. The SR-71 Blackbird, was like this top secret, jet that they, and that finally, came out as an actual thing. Okay. But these other projects have they never? How you would think they eventually would get like put out as like regular everyday stuff, kind of.
Yeah.
But we've never seen any of it. So what is it? Where is it? Was it being used for? Does that to me, it kind of makes it feel like these top secret kind of vehicles that are like that far advanced potentially don't exist, because otherwise they would have, the old ones would be like out being used now. Probably they would but put into service at some point. Otherwise, like what are they, if they're not being used, what are they being
I mean, they could be, like Cody said, they could be in use and the government just doesn't want anyone to know about it.
Yeah.
I mean, you could fall down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole. Like, there are people who claim that the government has invented all kinds of things that they just don't want people to know about. And I mean, I'm sure there's some truth to at least some of that, but I don't know.
I guess there's also the question on the flip side of this, which let's assume there is alien civilizations out there. What would be their civilization's action or reaction maybe to like finding us here on the planet? Is it going to be like to stay in the shadows? Would it be to like declare themselves our overlord because their technology is so much better than ours? Is it going to be to help us? What's that?
I said, ack. Mars attacks anyone? No.
I got it.
So I don't know. I don't know what the reaction would be either. I thought I had seen somewhere on some website, maybe like a year ago, and I tried to find it. I can't find it, but it essentially said like this would be the percentage of civilizations that would be advanced enough out there to reach us, and then of those, this percent of that would be likely to be hostile towards us versus peaceful towards us. It was kind of interesting, but I can't find the article, so neither here nor there.
Well, I can actually come back around, and I have my own story. It's not not as interesting. There isn't a lot of
PBR.
There's still a lot of PBR involved. Yeah. So I was on my way home. This is when I was living, still living on the farm, as Cody's familiar with, out in the middle of the country. Is just all farm land around, and that's why it's a farm. But so, anyways, I'm on my way home.
Good fact check.
I turn onto the road that is like heads down towards our house, and as I'm turning, so I'm turning to my right, so I'm looking ahead before I get to the turn, and there's something I notice in the sky. It's kind of shiny. It just is kind of like some sort of orbular shape. Could have been round, could have been an ovalish. Didn't get that great a look at it, but I remember it clearly looking reflective. It wasn't like a light, like a like the sun is a light, just pure light. It was reflective in some form. And so I didn't like slam on the brakes. Like, what the hell is that? I kept driving. And so this road has a bunch of trees. So after just a couple moments, I lost it behind the trees. And, I'm just driving and kind of looking. I'm driving slowly and looking off now to my left, trying to pick up, kind of watching the spot where this was. And I get to a place where there's a clearing and it's not there anymore. There's nothing in that. I stopped at that point and looked around, and there was nothing in that area that I had just been watching. But I very clearly feel like there was something there that I saw. It wasn't like a glare on a windshield or something like that, or it definitely wasn't an airplane. It looked to me, it was probably bigger, obviously perspective and distance, play a huge part. But to me, it looked like bigger than an airplane would look in the sky. And it was maybe like halfway up, the horizon. It wasn't like straight up, and it wasn't like on the horizon. It was kind of like, halfway up the sky. That's all there is to it. But that was one of the weirdest things that ever happened in my life, because I have no way to explain what that was, because I saw it and I felt I saw it very clearly for a couple moments, and then it was just gone.
How did your butt feel afterwards?
It was a little sore, but I didn't think of it at the time. I just kind of went about my business. What was weird is that it was a night then. It was daytime when I was driving, and then all of a sudden it was night. But
you lost a couple hours.
Yeah.
3 years later, but nothing weird. No big deal.
Another story I could throw in there. So this story is
this guy, all of a sudden he's just pulling these out of nowhere.
So this one is probably much more easily explainable. But my wife and I both experienced this and don't know how to explain it. And this isn't necessarily like a UFO aliens kind of thing, but it's a weird story that could potentially be aliens, I suppose. We were driving, we were on the freeway driving home, and it was late. It was like 1 or 2 a.m. And we were coming up towards Indian River. And so, I remember clearly seeing a sign like Indian River in like whatever it is, like 3 miles or something. And so I'm like, okay, I'm ready to turn off the exit. And the both of us were awake at this point. And the next thing that we really we realized we were past the exit with no explanation. Indian River, the exit is not like, it's not like a little turnoff with no lighting or anything. The city is right there. Driving past you would have been like, oh, here's a big city with a bunch of lights. And we missed this exit completely, both of us. And we were like 5 miles past it and had to turn around and come back. I can't explain that. Neither of us. We were, like I say, we were, just lost time. Probably we just, because it was, like I say, it was like 2 a.m. We probably just both just zoned out for a while.
1 a.m. Oh my God, you lost out.
but yeah, that's just another weird story that I have.
I do have a question about that story.
Yeah.
How did your butt feel afterwards? Just gonna be the recurring joke. I don't have a good UFO story or anything like that I can recall. I got nothing.
This
there.
is like apropos of nothing, but I'm just curious, Brett, like after either of those, but especially the first story you told, like how did you feel like the next day and going forward? Like, did you feel like your life had been changed, or was it just business as usual?
After the thing in the sky, I basically just went on and had no changes in my thinking about anything. It was just like, oh, that was weird. Okay, on with my life.
Yeah.
And I mean, in the grand scheme, with the second story, it was the same deal. But we both of us, like my wife and I, were definitely both shaken to some degree. For the rest of that trip home, that certainly was the weirder experience.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because like I talked about this on the ghost episode too, because I had a story there. Like, I feel like from what I've heard talking to people who've had these sort of like unexplainable experiences, there are these people who like claim they got butt probed by an alien or something, and they're like obsessed over it for the rest of their life. But like, I feel like the people who have had the most sort of like believable experiences, it is just kind of like, well, that happened, and then you get on with your life. Like, it's not, even though it's something that's completely unexplainable, it like doesn't break your brain and like ruin your life. It's just kind of like, well, I have no idea what the hell that was, but I'm just gonna move on.
I guess that would be kind of indicative of like acknowledging that person is more stable, therefore more believable.
Yeah, I mean, I do tend to find it more believable when the people are like that.
Yeah. That's just good. I'm gonna go backwards here, but I found a couple more articles I thought I would share quickly here. Not in detail, but I was just curious, some raw statistics. These are all from scientists, whatever those are. But I'm gonna trust their word, or I'm gonna trust their word and their math for it, because I made it not very far. So
did you say their word and their meth?
They're possibly their word and their math, but yes. So one thing I was searching here was how many habitable planets do we think are out there in this article. This is on actually SETI.org, so presumably fairly believable here. Estimates we have 300 million potentially habitable planets in our galaxy. So just
in our galaxy,
yes.
Oh.
Yes, this is ours. This is not a galaxy far, far away, but this is just this one. And then this other one here, this is on CBS News. You can draw your conclusions here. But the Astrophysical Journal out of the University of Nottingham is where we're getting this information from for the article. They are estimating that there would be a minimum of 36, this is very specific, 36 communicating intelligent alien civilizations in the Milky Way galaxy. And they have some formula that they run through to say why it's 36, but that's a really interesting number. And then the last one I have here is someone by the name of
Zephram Cochrane.
Frank Drake is our name here, who apparently in 1961 was working at the National Radio Astronomy Observatory in Green Bank, West Virginia, and he developed the eponymous, now famous Drake equation, which calculates how many advanced and detectable civilizations there should be in the Milky Way in any one year. And blah, 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 different from the other two I just mentioned, because it extrapolates that in the year 2040 specifically, or relatively close to that, is when we should make contact with alien life. So that's kind of interesting. So somebody put like a date on the calendar and say, this is where we're at here.
Mayans tried that too.
Yeah, how'd that work for them? They do have a little more math on this down here. Basically, it says if there are 1 million civilizations, then we would discover alien life by 2028, because it changes the equation. All of which is to say, it's coming up pretty soon. So I would buy your Disney tickets now.
I jokingly said Zephram Cochrane when you said the guy's name. Zephram Cochrane in the Star Trek universe is the guy who invents warp drive. And as a result of that, first contact is made in 2063. So it seems like all signs are pointing towards sometime in the next 50 years or so.
Would have been quicker than that, but it appeared that the warp drive breaks in every episode. So
it's true. Well, I mean, one thing that is, I'm sorry I keep bringing up Star Trek, but it's just like part of my brain. But one thing I've always found interesting is the concept of first contact in Star Trek. We don't make contact with any alien civilizations until we create the warp drive. And that's sort of the thing that is like a significant enough achievement for humanity that it makes, like, the Vulcans are the society that, you know, first contacts us, but it like gets their attention. And like, that's something that I think about sometimes too, is maybe we're just not advanced enough for, you know, another civilization to either notice us in the first place or want to bother making contact with us. Like, you think it's possible that aliens see us being like dumb and terrible and having mass shootings and plagues and all these things going on, and they're just like, I want nothing to do with these people. Like
let them sort it out.
It wouldn't take them much of work, like looking around at our
like,
what we got going on to come to that conclusion. Just flip on any channel for like 3 seconds. And
like, it's just something I think about sometimes. Like, it's possible that we're, you know, they're out there and they just want nothing to do with us.
It is possible, but then that goes back.
I want nothing to do with us.
Yeah. It goes back to what I said earlier, though. Like, then you're saying that the other civilizations would be very apathetic. Like, why wouldn't they come? Either A, try to like improve the Earth, or B, just blatantly take it over and be like, you know what? Now you're all slaves. Boom, problem solved.
I don't know, man.
Simulation theory.
That's another episode.
Oh my gosh.
We're living in the Matrix. Any last thoughts before we get into some rankings or ratings of possibilities here?
Well, I guess I could, since this was the only kind of prep work I did for this. And this actually comes from another friend of mine that we occasionally have just discussions about things like this. And so if we think about it is not, I wish it was. We were talking about how vast the universe is, and imagining how it's so big, there's got to be something out there. Well, so now to say it just ahead of time, that all these numbers are, it kind of blows my mind how anybody can even come up with any of these calculations, these figures, because I have no idea how you would put that into, like, study that and put that into numbers. But so like our sun is what's referred to as a yellow dwarf. It lives up to approximately 10 billion years, and like 6 billion years of that is actually like habitable, time span, where the sun is not puking out solar flares all the time, and things are just stable and livable for us. Now it's estimated that like 75% of the entire universe is made up of red dwarf stars, which live for like 10 trillion years. imagine that, how they figured out 10 trillion years, but
they probably just measured, I'm sure, back in
right. So anyways, these like 75% of the universe is red dwarfs, and they have a much longer unstable period at the start of their life. And so it takes many billions of years just to get to a point where they would be stable enough to have planets that wouldn't be like cooked off by these solar flares. And then by people's calculations, the universe is only 13.8 billion years old at this point. So 75% of the universe probably isn't even habitable. It keeps missing a T in there. Habitable. I might have put it in there. So if you think about it that way, now you're down to like 25%. And then of that 25%, it still takes like at a very precise set of circumstances to have a planet that we understand as being livable, being a correct position away from that star to not be too hot or too cold, having enough water. Yes, that's the term that everybody likes to use.
This is blowing my mind.
So if you think about it that way, it's far less, it's easier to look at it and say, well, we might be the only ones out there, because so much of the universe, there can't possibly, by our understanding, there can't be anything out there, just because our sun is so young compared to these other stars. And that's the that's the only prep work I did for this podcast. So I figured I might as well throw that out there.
I mean, interesting thing, if I'm understanding what you're saying too, is you're also saying like the universe itself is so young that if all those red dwarfs were to mature later on, like the universe could potentially be a much more populated place.
Yeah. Which goes back to my point earlier about how depressing it is to be human, because we'll probably never know any of that. I mean, the whole,
they'll have
like,
cryogenic freezing by the time you're dead. Don't worry.
The whole thing with like time and stars is weird in general, because like we were talking about the Webb telescope earlier. From my understanding, at least a significant portion of the stars we can see in those images from the telescope died like billions of years ago. And same thing with even stars that we can see in the night sky. Like it's like because it takes so long for that light to reach Earth, like those are stars that just like exploded like millions or billions of years ago. It's just crazy. I mean, there's also the idea that the universe is constantly expanding, which is a whole other can of worms. But
yes, I was going to just mention that. That's one of my all-time favorite campfire things to bring up. Like, what's at the edge of the universe? How does that work?
Yeah, it's space. Hey,
I think Brett may
some might
even
call
have been
it
around a
the
campfire.
final frontier. What?
So I think Brett may have even been around a campfire, but I've brought that up before. I don't know. That's what I tend to go to. I start a campfire and I'm like, what's at the edge of space? What's it expanding into then? Space? Can't be a dog's necklace with a marble in it. I don't know.
It's God. God's just out there.
This is going to piss off both sides of the camp, but I have thought it was funny recently where if like humans are now seeing further into the universe more clearly, and like when we eventually start to like presumably expand and go explore the universe, and God was like, damn it, now I gotta like actually work on those rough drafts that I just threw around the universe for like pretty stuff in the sky. Now I gotta like go back through and redo all that stuff in high detail now.
Womp womp.
Womp womp. Anyway.
So God is just a game dev and he's going to give us some DLC soon.
Maybe.
He gets mad when you get to like the edge of the playfield he's constructed.
Yep.
Turn back.
Someday a ship will just hit an invisible wall in space.
The universe is just like clipping.
Yeah. That's funny.
Anyway, any last thoughts?
I don't think so. I just
All
thought
right. What?
I was just saying that my last quote before, if you're getting to rankings
Go
here.
for it.
Carl Sagan himself was quoted as
Ooh, what did that
saying,
guy know?
"The universe is a pretty big place. If it's just us, it seems like an awful waste of space."
Oh, I like that.
There you go.
Is that an intentional pun by him? That's what I'm
I
wondering.
hope so.
I
don't
would.
know.
It had to be.
I hope so.
So I'm
So
gonna
what
ask
are
you.
we? How are we going to rank this?
Well,
Are you-
I'm going to tell you.
okay.
Let me
On a
tell you,
scale of
Cody.
1 probe to 10.
We're going to do 2 different ratings.
I was just going to propose that. Go
All
ahead.
right. So, well, here's my idea:
Go. You're the host. What do you got?
is
Stupid. Let's try a different idea.
one
All right.
rating. One rating for how likely do you think it is that intelligent life exists elsewhere in the universe?
Doesn't exist.
The other
here,
would
so-
be for how likely is it that aliens have actually visited Earth?
Okay. What do you want?
Fair.
Which one?
Is that pretty much what your two are going to be, Cody? Or
I think it was pretty close to that. Yeah. What are we?
Okay.
Which are we doing first?
all right, let's do so scale 1 to 10, 10 being most likely. Let's start with how likely do you think it is that aliens have visited Earth?
I actually haven't thought of this yet. So I'm trying to come up with an answer in my head right now.
Oh man.
All right, so I'll jump on this. Like, I don't. I'm not going to give it a very high number here. I'm gonna go with maybe 4. Nice round 4. Yeah.
Interesting.
It's the pointiest number, not round at all.
It's true. Yeah, it's all lines and angles.
Yeah, it's pokey.
Yeah, I don't think that, despite my thoughts that the universe is so large and there's got to be something out there. This maybe it's influenced by like all the sci-fi stuff that I've watched. If they've, I feel like if they visited us, it would be more concise. It would be like, okay, we're here, greet us. It wouldn't be like sneaking around in the shadows and talking to people who probably didn't graduate high school, and
You leave Skeeter out of this.
that's where I would go. It might even be lower than 4. I don't give it a lot because if it had happened, I feel like it would have been something more definite by this point.
Just picturing like years ago, they developed some kind of tracking device to see who has PBR and who doesn't. They only appear to those people.
I'm one of the chosen few.
You're one of the chosen few. They almost went for a Miller.
Are you ready, Cody?
A
Or
Miller
are you
guy
ready
one
to go?
time, but luckily it's changed direction.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The Miller guys are the ones that get probed.
Oh boy. I'm gonna give. So it's what's our low end of our scale? Just so I know.
I mean, it's 1 to 10.
1 to 10. Okay. Let's just make sure it wasn't a 0 to 10. 1 to 10. Okay. I would say I just don't see the proof that anything here has happened in modern times. Stuff could conceivably be explained by technology, although we mentioned a few times, like going back in history, I don't have an account for what those things could be that they saw. But
I have 2 words for you: ancient aliens.
ancient aliens. Hey, gotta build a pyramid somehow.
It's amazing that we made it through this whole podcast, and that was the first time I really brought it up.
I'm gonna go low on this one. I'm gonna go extremely low. I'm gonna say 2.
Boy.
I'm gonna go 2.
Ooh.
I just don't see the proof. And I like to believe in fun stuff, but I don't think so.
Man, I hate when I agree with Cody.
God damn it. So don't.
I was torn between a 1 and a 2 because I really don't believe that it's happened, but
Damn it, I was gonna say one.
but I want to believe.
Oh.
I mean, I try to keep an open mind. I mean, I think there is like a very, very infinitesimally small possibility that it could have happened. So because it's not absolute zero, I also have to say 2. I think it's very, very, very unlikely. I think that's probably the lowest number I've given as far as possibility for any of these things. But yeah, I got to go 2.
That's fair.
So then the next question is, what do you think the likelihood is that intelligent life exists elsewhere in the universe?
I'm definitely going to go higher than the other ranking. I really don't. So I guess I mean, not that we have to like sit here and debate this, but what we're giving is intelligent life, like life that can make choices for its like what it's doing. Does it have like has every like civilization, like has every like social skills?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, I would say like, I would say life that we would recognize. Well, I mean, we spent time talking about how we might not recognize it, but I mean, it has to be like a life form that is capable of like making decisions. Like, I would say what we would, it has to at least be on the level of like an animal on our planet, not just like a tiny microscopic amoeba or something, but like, something significant enough to like, you know, not be like necessarily entirely sentient, I guess, but like have at least some sort of brain that drives it to like make choices and such.
I could just say, yeah. Okay, so I would have to. I guess I would say maybe 5. It, as I said, it's the universe is just it's so huge. There's got it feels like there's got to be something out there. Just statistically, there's something out there that far because we can't even possibly hope to, even with these new telescopes. It's just everything out there. We don't know what's out there. You can't see it. Yeah. And so I have to imagine there's something out there. So I'm going to put it right in the middle, 50-50. Yeah, 50-50 possible chance of intelligent life.
This is tough because I think of like all of the possibilities here. So to clarify the question, you're saying at this exact moment.
I'm saying right now.
Right now. So like they didn't already
disregarding
exist
and
kill
all
themselves
the data
off.
Brett dropped on us as far as like the future, like right now out there somewhere in the universe.
I'm gonna go high on this one, just purely playing the odds. I feel like something has to be out there. If you take the percent of 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 all the variables here, you still end up with a pretty high number based on the universe. So I'll go 8 out of 10. I think there's probably something out there somewhere, whether any of those civilizations ever have the capacity to reach or interact with each other, I don't know. I was also going to mention too, things like the things that scientists claim they have seen out in space already, like the Dyson sphere with the like capturing a star and putting a giant building around it to harness its energy, or like all these weird things that are set to head through our galaxy here soon, our solar system in particular. I think there's just got to be something out there. I don't know. I'm gonna say 8 out of 10.
You would go that high. 9 out of 10. I mean, I'm not quite confident enough to give it 10 out of 10, but I really, really think that there has to be something out there. I feel like it would be kind of, like I said before, conceited to believe that we're like the only intelligent life forms in this whole wide universe.
How terrible would you feel if like every civilization in the history of the universe all lived and died of their own stupid decisions? none of them have ever made it anywhere.
They were all just as dumb as we are.
Oh, that's depressing.
Womp womp.
But maybe.
But I mean, there will probably be more born in the next billions and billions of years.
It's true. The Celestials are working on it as we speak.
Oh no! Oh, what
Jesus!
The hell is that?
What?
Oh, I remember that. Oh God! Oh,
That's fluky.
there was some creepy stuff on that show.
That was. So for our listeners at home, Joe has had a Gillian Anderson background this whole episode, and Brett has Mulder's Office, and I just now put up Fluke Man as my background.
Yeah.
But I originally
Hard
had
pass.
my wife
Got
and
a
I-
purty mouth.
yeah, dressed as our Halloween costumes from one of Joe's old Halloween parties.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what that like ball thing hanging in the upper left corner there is. I have no idea. Like, I mean, I recognize that as my old living room, but I have like no earthly idea what that is.
Do you have like a Chinese cat and like some things hanging down over there or something?
No,
One of those, handshaky cats.
I
I
don't
can't
know.
remember.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, that thing in the top right.
Well, it's on my screen, it's the top left, like over the painting.
Yeah, that was a little device I put in your house that was set to flood it years down the road.
Well, thanks, man.
That was
Made a couple dollars off that.
that's all right then. Did you lose
Man.
Did you lose Cinemasters? If so, win-win.
I mean, I lost a copy of Cinemasters,
God damn.
but more and more survive.
No.
Anyway, I think
Anyway,
that's gonna just about do it for us.
what
for
was
this
Brett's
episode.
number on the last one?
5.
Oh,
Splitting it
okay.
down the
Relatively
middle.
low. Yeah.
Wait, but you gave the Earth a 4?
Yeah, those numbers don't seem to kind of jive with each other too much, but
I mean, they do if you believe they're out there and they visited, I guess.
I
So
mean, he's just
Yeah.
really hopeful about those probes. The truth is out there, ladies and gentlemen,
it is.
and non-binary folks.
Yeah, we'll have to do a Star Trek and X-Files one someday too.
I'm down.
Let's do it. All
Well,
right.
For
We're good?
now, this has been
friends occasionally disagree.
Wow. Hey, Brett, I got a question for you.